Hey y'all, welcome back to the Holy Homegirl podcast. On this podcast, we will be talking about my journey with Christ and just kind of navigating Christian stereotypes and misconceptions. And as the Lord gives me revelation of His Word, I'm going to be giving it to you guys. Firstly, I want to say thank you to everyone that watched the last episode. I received a lot of messages of people saying that they were on their journey or they had been on their journey previously, and through watching the first episode that they felt inspired to get back into their word. And so I just want to keep that going, and I'm really grateful. That really blesses me because, kind of prefacing what we're going to get into today, I didn't feel worthy enough to start the podcast. And so I had to push through my pain and my grief and whatever just to get started. And I'm glad that I did. So if you're watching at home, grab your tea, grab your coffee, a journal, some pens, and sit down and get cozy, get fly, and let's get started. All right. So for today, I'm going to be reading from the book of Ruth. I really didn't want to teach on this. Ruth is actually my favorite book in the Bible, but I didn't want to read it for quite some time because I had experienced a lot of heartbreak, and I feel like the book of Ruth is kind of glamorized, and we're always taught or we're always motivated to find our Boaz, and like it's just something that women can kind of idolize. And I think I was a woman that idolized the idea of Boaz finding me or me finding my Boaz. And so I just didn't want to read it because I was discouraged. But as I was worshiping, like last week, I think I was in my living room worshiping, and the Lord told me to go get my Bible. So I did, and I opened it to the book of Ruth, and I immediately closed it and continued worshiping. And I told God that I wasn't going to read it. But then I opened it again, and the Lord told me that He was going to show me something from a new perspective. And even that in itself is like a word, because God can change your perspective. When you're closed off to something, He'll open your heart. And so through reading Ruth, I'm only going to go through the first two chapters. I really only read chapter 1 and then like the first half of chapter 2, I think, until verse 17. And I'm really not going to read it, but just to summarize it, Ruth is a Moabite woman, I believe, and she had a husband and two sons. And then she had, through her two sons, she had, they were both married, so there was Ruth and Orpah, and her husband and her two sons passed away. And so, as you can imagine, she experienced a lot of grief and a lot of pain. I'm sure losing a child is something that someone would never want to experience. I couldn't imagine losing a child, let alone losing my husband. Um, and so Naomi grew bitter, and she said that she changed her name. She didn't want to be called Naomi anymore. I believe she said she wanted to be called Mara, which means bitterness. And so um, she was going to go back home to where she was from. She ended up moving to another town, and she wanted to go back home to where she was from. She told her two daughters, like, I'm old. I can't give you any more kids. There's nothing that I can offer you at this point. So you guys just need to go back home to your moms. Um, and Orpah left, but Naomi stayed. But Ruth stayed. She refused to go back home. She felt like she had a responsibility to serve Naomi and to love her no matter what, and she did that. And through like traditions, um Ruth wasn't technically qualified to marry outside of her um what is it called, out of her like tradition, out of her culture, I guess. And so they were kind of like in a hopeless state. Like, I can't, as Naomi, I can't bear any children. There's nothing I can do for you anymore, and really I'm legally your only hope for a future ahead of losing your husband, and I can't do that for you, so I'm good for nothing. And with Ruth, it's like, okay, I don't know where else I'm going to find a husband, but I'm supposed to just stay here. And also, she didn't believe in the same God as Naomi, which Naomi believed in Jesus. And so how Naomi mustered up the strength, it had to be nothing but the grace of God. but through that grace and through that strength, she was able to prepare Ruth for her blessing, which was Boaz. And so just reading this story took me back to a season that I'm coming out of, which is a season of grief. I've ended a 10-year situationship, relationship, whatever that is. I'm not where I thought I was going to be in my life, which I mean, I'm only 28, but still, we all just kind of have this like perception of how you want your life to turn out. And when you don't get there, you feel like you lose something. You feel like you've lost yourself. You feel like you're losing sight of your path and like your goals and your visions. So I just felt like I was just in a painful state of heartbreak and loss for a few years, really, like maybe since 2019. And I really, in 2019, God gave me the vision for the podcast. And I made so many excuses. Like I wanted to do it with someone. And I just didn't have like the right space to film in. And I felt responsible for so many souls, which now I am. But I just was making all these excuses out of grief and out of pain and out of just a mindset of lack. But through reading this and God shifting my perspective of the book of Ruth, God has shown me that I am someone's Naomi. And if you are someone's Naomi, you have to ask God for that strength. In our weakness, his strength is made perfect. And so in your moments of weakness, really lean on God, because you're not going to be able to do it out of your own strength. You're not going to be able to watch enough motivational YouTube videos and scroll on TikTok and like do the Pinterest boards and all of the things to get it together. You're really going to have to just pray and ask God to give you that grace and give you that strength. And one day before you know it, you'll just be up. But be obedient in doing that, because um, there's a Ruth out there that's depending on you. And you don't want someone else's blessing to be delayed because of your disobedience. Ooh, okay. Another thing I want to touch on is there was a famine during that time. So on top of her losing her sons, losing her husband, she was experiencing, her whole entire country was experiencing a famine. They couldn't eat, they couldn't provide for themselves, so their lives were literally at stake. And through Naomi's wisdom and love for the Lord, she loved the Lord unsparingly. Through that, her spirit was open to receive the word of the Lord and where to go. And she ended up leading her and Ruth to Boaz to Boaz's land, his field. And there Boaz provided Ruth with barley, and she could harvest that barley um, as much as her heart desired. And so through your obedience, God will lead you into your harvest season. And the Lord will literally pour out a blessing more than you can ever receive. That's it. That is like, I just feel like the Holy Spirit, and that's grace. That's really grace, because I am thinking, when I started the podcast, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to film it where I live. And through my obedience, God provided friends that are willing to pour into my gift just by me saying yes. And so don't worry about the details of it all. Don't worry about the resources that you need. Don't focus on the lack and what you don't have. Just say yes and take that first step, and God will literally open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you cannot receive. Like, the resources just come from left and right. And also, to someone who is out there who doesn't feel like a Naomi, who feels like a Ruth, you have to be humble. You have to have a heart of humility, um, and pay attention to whoever is your Naomi. And I'm speaking to myself, because in this season of my life, I really do think that my mom and my grandmother are my Naomi. Um, and coincidentally, my grandmother is a widow, but when it comes to the word, she does have a lot of wisdom. She does pour into me, and she does always encourage me. And I think that she does prepare me for what's ahead sometimes. And so if my heart was wax cold and prideful, then I would have a deaf ear to whatever it is she's saying. And so if you are someone's Ruth, open your heart to receiving instructions and guidance from someone, because they are preparing you for your next season in life. They could be preparing you for your Boaz. They could be preparing you for your harvest, for your field to glean in. They could be preparing you for that new home you're going to buy, for the children you're going to have, for the church you're going to start, for your ministry. You're going to minister to nations, for the friends that you're going to have. So yeah, I hope that this word reaches someone's heart. If you guys have any comments or questions or whatever it is, you can send me a message. I did start the Instagram page. It's called The Holy Homegirl on Instagram, and you can send me a DM there. I do have an email as well. It's theholyhomegirl@gmail.com if you want to email me, or just comment below and kind of talk amongst each other if you feel comfortable to do so. And yeah, thanks guys. Bye.